Well, welcome back to Pro Photo Insights. Tonight we are on the Somerset levels. The sun's dropping down. It's a beautiful evening. Sun's dropping down behind us here, and we have a big river running alongside. And there's a sluice gate which controls the water levels on this river, and it creates a bit of a waterfall. So I thought it'd be a really nice, interesting shot to do. We're going to try and get lots of colour in the shot, and also lots of motion in the water, and just create a really stunning picture. So I'll give you a little tour around of the area, and we'll set the camera up. And we'll see what we get. Well, welcome back. We're now in the studio, and I have on screen a small selection of the images we shot at Greylake Sleuice. Now, if you're familiar with Pro Photo Insights, you'll know that my videos tend to be quite long. They go in quite a lot of detail, right from the location shooting through the post-production to the final image. Now, Pro Photo Insights snapshot videos like this one aim to be quite a bit shorter and more condensed, so we try and aim to keep the videos under 10 minutes. So from that point of view, this isn't going to be as detailed a video as normal. We're going to try and condense it down quite a bit, but nevertheless we're going to try and get in as many tips and give you an overview of this image and why I created it the way I did, and so forth. Now, I have mentioned this several times in the videos, so if you have watched some of my stuff before, forgive me, but two of the most important things in photography for me is composition and light. Now, obviously light is an obvious one. Without light we can't take any pictures, and depending, there's no such thing as bad light in my opinion. It just depends on the effect you want to go for. Now, composition, cameras today are very, very good. You can grab one out of a box, put a battery in it and start shooting, and chances are the exposures are going to be pretty good. So that part is pretty much covered, but my argument is a perfectly well exposed boring picture is a boring picture. So you need to get the fundamentals right. So you need to make interesting compositions and get those covered first, and then if you've got that sorted out, then you can go pretty much from that point and do pretty much anything you want with the image to improve upon it. Now, getting the composition good in this picture was a bit of a battle, because I was very restricted where I was. I was on a riverbank and there wasn't a lot of room, so moving the camera too much forward or back wasn't really an option. Now, when you use wide-angle lenses, I think it's fair to say that most landscapes are shot on wide angles. I myself, my style of photography has changed slightly, and I'm using less wide-angle lenses. I try and use slightly longer lenses in my landscapes, but again, it depends on the location. Here it was a bit more restrictive. Again, I couldn't go too long because I was already fairly close to the sluice gates there. But if you are using wide angles, you really got to work at your compositions that little bit harder, and by that I mean, you need to come down and get a little bit of foreground interest to give the image a bit of depth. If you hold a camera up with a wide-angle lens at eye level and just point it at something, it can sometimes, can work, but sometimes it looks a little flat. So the way to get around that, excuse me, is to have something in the foreground to give it a little bit extra depth. Now, you can get a lot of distortion with wide-angle lenses, but that's fairly accepted depending on your outlook. If you're shooting architecture with a wide-angle lens, you might say, well, the building's leaning, and that's just not correct. Well, it wouldn't be if you're an architectural photographer and you're shooting for an architect's firm. That probably wouldn't be acceptable, but in general we accept things like that. So I wouldn't get too hung up on lens distortion and perspective distortion. In my mind, anything goes if it works. So bear that in mind. If you're using wide angles, try and get a little bit of foreground interest in the picture. Now here's a series of pictures from this shoot, and I was really struggling to do that because when I approach an image, my first thing I'll try and do is simplify. So you take anything out of the picture that doesn't need to be there. So I try and strip the image down to the bare minimum. And with this image, this is where I started off from. I was trying to get the camera in a good position to show what I wanted, and it was a little bit messy in the foreground. I think that we're right at the end of the summer here, and some of the reeds in the foreground, the riverbank, were dying off, so it wasn't ideal. So I was playing around. Here's some uprights. I tried an upright shot, but that really didn't do it for me, and so I'm just going along with the camera, just trying to clean up. Now I could, in this image for instance, I could have taken out this bunch of reeds or flowers, whatever they were in the foreground, just to try and tidy this edge up. But again, I'd rather get things right in camera as much as possible. So eventually I carried on, and still it was a little bit messy. I tried to come up a little bit, try to come down a little bit, and in the end I managed to find a good spot. I was a little bit close to the sluice gates than I wanted to be. I'd rather have gone back a bit further, but this I felt worked well. It's good balance. We've got some nice reeds in the foreground here, but they're not overpowering. We're not sort of in this area where they're battling for attention with the sluice gates. This is a bit too much in my opinion. There's just enough there just to add a bit of foreground interest. So this is how I went through the image, and you want to just pay attention really, and just try different angles, different heights, get down low, come up high, just try and move the camera around, and hopefully you'll find something which just clicks in your mind, and you know that it kind of looks like well balanced through the camera. Okay, so once I've gone through the editing process and found the image I want to go forward with, obviously I'll process that in Camera Raw, and I always bring my images into Photoshop slightly flat. I don't make my very fine adjustments in Camera Raw because more often than not, for me, there's always more work I want to do on the image. If I was outputting straight to JPEG or for a client, then I may well do all my fine adjustments in Camera Raw, but generally I don't. I bring it into Photoshop there or thereabouts, and then make my final adjustments within Photoshop, because basically I like a lot of control over my images. So here's the image I picked out from a bunch we shot. First thing I tend to do is color correct. Now, most of my images are color images, and I've always loved color. I do some black and white, but I'm not looking for a true representation of the scene. So I don't mind if colors go slightly haywire. Now, this time of day, I should explain a little bit about this time of day. I do a lot of long exposures, and what I call the edge of darkness, or air light is another word for it. I've just done a video on air light, but it's basically shooting at dusk or dawn. So the sun's gone down, you can see the moon's come up here, the sun's gone down, and all that's illuminating this scene, it's virtually pitch black, is the light that's left in the sky. Now, you can see here you've got lots of kind of magentas and warmish colours ranging over this side right through to cooler tones on this side of the sky, and that's reflected onto this concrete. Now, is that correct colour? Well, probably not, but if I colour correct the images, that's what I'm left with. But sometimes I'll do that, sometimes I won't. I don't particularly want, for me, that's probably maybe a little bit overcorrected. It's not how I felt the scene when I was there. It's not how I interpreted the scene. So sometimes I'll colour correct, sometimes I don't. And it's, again, that's down to personal preference. But I don't care if the colours go slightly weird. If that's how they were at the time, that's how I generally leave them. From this point on then, it's just a matter of adjusting the image to get the look I want from the scene. Again, how I interpreted the scene from when I shot it. Now, all along, whenever I retouch an image, it's very much the same as when I capture the image. I'm looking to strengthen the image, the composition. I want my viewer to look at the picture, and I want to almost draw them a map and guide them through the image to the parts that I want to get them to concentrate on. Now, in this image, it's kind of the falling water, the blurring, and we can do that in many ways. This is my final picture. There's before, there's after, and you can see if you look at the reeds here, I've added a little bit more contrast to them and sort of make them a bit more illuminated. The water especially, that's really kind of glowing, and the way we draw people's attention to certain parts of our image is through areas of sharpness, through areas of stronger colour, and through areas of stronger contrast. So all these things can be used, tools that we can use within Photoshop to help us concentrate and guide our viewer's eye through the image. So here's one here for the water and the moon. And again, we don't want that too overpowering, but we might want to bring it up a little bit. We've got some here for the edges, of darken the edges off of the frame. And that helps concentrate the viewer's eye on the centre of the image. And then areas of sharpness, you can see, well, you should be able to see on screen, I hope. Let me just zoom in a little bit. That is actually getting sharper. Let me just move that up. This is CS5. I'm not used to it. It's a demo I'm trying out. So there's the areas of sharpness there. Hopefully you can see that on the video. And that also helps bring the viewer's eye to the areas we want them to be looking at. So all these kind of different bits and pieces of adjustments we can use to help us with our final image. And so that's really just a brief overview of how I created this picture. I hope you've grabbed a few tips in there along the way, and it's been helpful. If you want to check out any more of my videos, as I said, most of them are much longer than this and more detailed, and you can go to prophotoinsights.net and check those out. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again very shortly. Cheers.